Hello, my droplets. So, this is a late night video done off the cuff. I have no safety net, no script, just talking because I thought I miss you guys. And the last couple of videos have all been super difficult, super sad things about how much everything sucks right now if you're a minority in America. And well, I could go on about that, but today I'm not doing that. Instead, I'm going to have a refreshing bit of tea. And I am going to talk about one of the loves of my life, gaming. In this case, I'm talking mostly about pen and paper games, when you take a bunch of friends, some dice, a couple books, figures, whatever else. You go and sit in the basement and you pretend to be elves or space marines or some other crazy shit. Fun times. And I'm going to talk about my two favorite games out there. One of them is known for being incredibly simple. The other is known for being incredibly complex. The first game, the one that's very simple, this is an old school game. This was the D6 system Star Wars by West End Games. Good old WEG. WEG back in the day, we're talking the 90s, when dinosaurs had just died off, but the mammoths were still around. And back then, the internet was just starting. So, like books, you didn't do PDFs, you did books. You did a lot of books. West End Games for version of Star Wars had a astonishing number of books. 30, 40, I think. There were books on spaceships. There were books on the Force. There were books on being Imperial, about being a rebel, about being a smuggler. But all of them were united by the fact that they were connected to a very simple rule set. And this rule set was based on rolling D6s. Only D6s, which was kind of unusual back in the day. Around that time, I think the only other game that did one die, at least for a while, was I think it was the World of Darkness system, and maybe the original Shadowrun, which was a very strange system way back when. But the point is, you rolled these D6s, and the more you had, the better you did. And that was pretty much the entirety of the base system. And what was genius about this was that it was real easy to get into the game. Like, you would get a character together, and you'd be like, okay, I have 5 dice to roll for this. And that's it. The higher you get, the better you do. And they had a brilliant way to describe the difference between, say, shooting a hand blaster or shooting a spaceship turbo laser. They had scale, which just increased or decreased the number of dice according to the size, your relative size to something else. So it was really easy to hit the Death Star with a blaster, but impossible to damage it. And it was really hard for the Death Star to hit, say, R2-D2. But R2-D2 would be dead. Boom, gone. Kind of amusingly, in fact. Little puff of smoke and... Anyway, the game was perfect for Star Wars because its simplicity encouraged you to just get in there, make up a wild character, and just enjoy yourself. I played back in the day a what was it? A spider made out of living crystal, who was a scientist and who knew nothing about weapons or anything else. And he was really, really fun. He did think, he was the one who came up with ideas like, wait, if I take this one chemical and this other chemical, I can improvise a massive explosive, and oops, I failed my roll. And that was the end of that character. But it was awesome until then. In another game, someone played a droid who, when the ship's lasers went out, crawled out onto the surface of the ship, wired his ass into the spaceship, and used himself to fire the laser. He didn't actually use his ass. Bender was not known back in the 90s. Wasn't even a dream yet. So no one thought to use a robot's ass for things. You simply attach it to your chest or some basic things. Maybe I don't know. Maybe little clamps on robot nipples. Who knows? But when you played the game, race creation was actually probably the most complex part of playing a Star Wars game, because you had three choices. You had human, which was easy. Humans are humans. Cantankerous everywhere, multiple skin tones, just everywhere. And then you had droids and aliens. And droids had all sorts of special rules just for themselves. They don't eat or sleep or anything. And they couldn't use the Force, but they also couldn't be affected by a lot of Force powers. And they didn't heal, they had to be repaired. But there were a million different types of droids. You had droids that cleaned, you had droids that shot things, you had those little mouse droids from the Death Star, you had R2-D2s, you had C-3POs, you had weird obscure droids, you had droids from the books, just tons and tons of droids. And you could make one up if you really wanted to. Like, what are you? I'm a toaster droid. I make some toast. You want some fucking toast? And that would be your character. Then, after that, and most droids could not shoot at someone. They could not hurt a living thing. It was a safety programmable. Apparently, the idea of, say, your battery charger deciding that it was done with your shit and killing you in the night was a thing best avoided. Terrible PR. And then you had the aliens. And if you thought there were a lot of rules, a lot of different versions of droids, there were books and books and books of aliens. Every single type. Many of them just, hi, I'm a human, but I've got green skin and funky hair. But there were a lot that were really weird. You had Rhodians, so Greedo, little anteater motherfuckers. You had, you just had everybody. I mean, it was Chewbacca, Wookiees. Though no one wanted you to play a Wookiee, because you play a Wookiee, you'd be doing this all day. Roar, 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 and not speaking English. So that was always a pain in the ass. But someone always wanted to do a character like that. And then you had the Force, which again was a series of skills that you spent your points on, and it gave you powers. And the better you rolled, the more accurate your powers. And there were other things too, like spaceships and some aspects of the Force, like Force points, but we won't get into that there. We've already gone 10 minutes. Let's go to the next part of the video. My other favorite system, Pathfinder. The Pathfinder RPG is really different than West End games because Pathfinder is very, very complex. Pathfinder is a game that basically says we want a rule for every situation, but we want them and while these rules are consistent and generally very logical, there's a lot of them, and there's a much higher bar for getting into this game. Now, Pathfinder came about when Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 was being converted to 4th edition. About this time, I believe Hasbro had bought Wizards of the Coast, and they decided that, hey, I know, let's just rape everything people love about 3.5. Dungeon Magazine, gone. Dragon Magazine, out the door. And they didn't tell anyone they were doing this. They didn't tell Paizo, the publisher of these magazines, that they were going to be discontinued until, like, I think three issues were left of each of those. And they left Paizo just struggling to survive. Now, obviously, Paizo did. And what they did is they took the D20 open license, which allowed you to, as long as you followed certain guidelines, you could take the D20 system 3.5 and do anything you wanted with it. And so basically, I think it started as a way of saying, screw you for fucking us over. We're going to make our own game. Blackjack, hookers. And they did. There is, and optionally there is blackjack and hookers. So it works out. But the system is, they took the system, the basic D20 system, and they tweaked it heavily, so that while the basic instructions and rule set is there, it's all been altered enough that it doesn't quite legally step on anyone's toes. And now it's a very complex system. You've got your stats, you've got your magic, you've got your saves, you've got bonuses for armor, and spells, and magic, and race, and just everything has a ton of rules. There's classes, and there's prestige classes, which is something you buy later. Just tons and tons. But it's a very smooth system. Once you get used to how many rules there are, getting through it isn't all that difficult. You just have to get a rough idea of the rule set you're using at the time. It's not so bad. I love it because it's one of the most versatile leveling systems I've ever seen. You do level up, there's 1 to 20, and if you're really a glutton for punishment, there's past 20. But it takes a long time to get from level 1 to level 20. A lot of adventures. And over this time, you can do virtually anything. Like, let's say I want to be a gnome. Cute little gnome. But I am a gnome barbarian with a massive sword. Just a total fuck-off blade. That's totally doable. Let's say about 3 levels in, I'm like, I am tired of just swinging my sword. I'm gonna be a sorcerer. And that's a type of magic user that just makes magic appear out of nowhere without studying it or anything. It just, in my head, cast. And so you're sitting there and you're going into a barbarian, you're a tiny little barbarian rage, firing like fireballs at people and chopping them in the dick with swords. Pretty awesome. And then you get a little later and you're like, I want a prestige class because I want to combine my fireball throwing and my dick stabbing. And you do. You find the prestige class you like that is, I don't know, fire sword dick stabber. And you have that, and that's exactly what you do. You run around with this new class, this extra class that you only get when you meet certain criteria for your character. certain levels, certain alignments, and then you take that and you add it to your character, and it becomes your class for a while. And you can add as many classes as you want with not too much penalty. There's some experience for overdoing it because they don't want you taking one level in every single goddamn class. Plus, that's not very efficient. It's not a good use of your time. But I loved it because you can make up some truly bizarre and creative character combinations. I played a bard who became who added ranger, and who added a class converted from 3.5 called Extreme Explorer. What this did is it enabled me to, one, I could charm things. Two, I could charm people. Two, I could charm animals. And three, I was Indiana Anna Jones. So Indiana Anna Jones, go on these adventures, and she'd play her music and charm a bunch of people, and then stab them in the face with a pair of swords. And at one point, she, charmed a giant bird and made it her mount. So she ran around. So here is Indiana Anna Jones riding a chocobo into combat, and at the same time spending doing crazy things like I'll use this whip and swing over while I'm on ostrich back. And I really loved a system that allows for gonzo craziness like that. And again, that goes back to my other favorite system, Star Wars, which, because of its simplicity, allowed you to do some really creative shit with their rule set. And that's really what I go for with games. You want to make games. I feel the rule set should encourage a player to try anything once. I mean, you don't want to make a rule the more constraining a system, the harder it is to really enjoy what you're doing. Because when you can't do it, and there's no way to do it, it will, at least for me, it will eat you. Be like, but I wanted to do this one thing. You can't do the thing. But I wanted the thing. You can't do the thing. Well, then why am I playing? I mean, you don't want to just walk in and do the thing. That's not fun. What you want is to walk in, kill 1,000 orcs, take their... Ladies and gentlemen, my cat. Anyway, droplets. I'm taking that. The point is, you want a creative system, and that's very important to me. And so I stuck to those games and still do. Now, Pathfinder is still available. It's paizo.com. You can find it everywhere. The Pathfinder RPG is very current and truly amazing. West End Games is only online anymore. I don't believe the company itself exists exactly. I think someone holds the rights to the company but hasn't done anything with it. There's a fan make of the game, like a new edition made by fans, which is pretty damn good. And of course, there is just a million books, and you can find them all over the place, like RPG Now, places like that. Get yourself some PDFs, or even go down to a half-price books and check it out. Guarantee you, they have at least one book from Star Wars RPG in the gaming section. Every one I've ever been to has books from the Star Wars RPG in it. And so I'm going to call it here. And oh, my droplets, it's been a night. I love you all, and goodbye.